Okay, we're going to be working in lesson 5.3, and what we're going to work on now is we're actually going to be writing the equations in slope-intercept form. So we worked on graphing, but now we're actually going to write the equations. Okay, so let's go ahead and review slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and your b value, that's your y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis. Okay. All right. So the first thing it's asking us to do is just to find slope and the y-intercept. Okay. So when we're looking at y equals mx plus b, your slope will be in the position right next to the x there. So your slope will be -2, and your b value, so y equals mx plus b, your b value will be 6. Okay. So trying this one now, your slope will be 3/4, and your b value will be -2. Okay. Now on this one, this is not y equals mx plus b form, so we need to go ahead and make it y equals mx plus b. So to do that, we're going to isolate the y first. Okay, so we've got to solve for y. So a couple steps to do that. We're going to subtract the 2x over. So we're going to get -3y equals -2x plus 9. And then we're going to divide all parts by -3. So y equals, a negative of a negative is a positive 2/3 x, and then 9 divided by -3 is -3. All right, so now you'll identify your slope and your b value. So your slope will be 2/3, and your b value will be -3. Okay, all right, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to try to solve for y on your own here for d. Okay, so to solve for y, you should have subtracted the x off, and you got -4y equals -x plus 10, and then you're going to divide everything by -4. So you'll have y equals, a negative by negative is a positive. Keep in mind that technically there is a 1 right there. So it ends up being a positive 1/4 x, and then a negative, I'm going to call it just 5/2. It's okay if you make it 2.5 or whatever you did there, 2.5. So now that you've solved for y, your slope or your m value should have been 1/4, and your b value is -5/2. Okay. All right. So now on example 2 here, it says write an equation in slope-intercept form given the following information. All right, so now we're going to kind of go backwards. They're going to give us m and b, and all we're going to do is write the equation. So this would be y equals m. So in place of m, put your 1/2 x plus b. So in place of b, we're going to go ahead and put -3. Okay, all right. Now this guy, it's the exact same thing. Remember, we talked quite a bit in the last chapter about that this guy right here is your y-intercept, that we can write it as y equals 6, okay? Or in this case, it would be b equals 6 since it's now a y-intercept, okay? So when we're writing this, we've got y equals -3x, and then keep in mind, this is your intercept. It's not actually your y value, but it's actually your b value. Where does it cross the y-axis? It's crossing at 0, 6. So we're going to have a plus 6. Okay, next one here. It says a horizontal line that crosses the y-axis at 0, -5. Okay, first off, you have to know what a horizontal line, a slope for horizontal line looks like. So hopefully you know by now that your slope will be m equals 0 here. And then it says it crosses the y-axis at 0, -5. So they're yelling at you. They're telling you, look, it's crossing the y-axis. That is the definition of y-intercept. And they're also giving you the coordinate point so that you know your b value is -5. Okay, so now when you write your equation, y equals 0x minus 5, or if you really want to, you can just say y equals -5, because the 0x won't change the value at all. So I don't care if you write that or not. But either one of these answers would work. Okay, so now this says a line that passes through the origin and has a slope of 3. Okay, so if we're thinking about the origin, hopefully we know that the coordinate point there would be 0, 0. So if that's the case, then that means my B value is 0. That's my start position. And then I have a slope of 3. So y equals 3x and then plus 0. You don't have to put the plus 0. If you just want to do y equals 3x, that's the same thing, and I'd accept either one of those. All right, so far they've given us some equations, they've given us words, and now they're going to give us some pictures. So now we're going to write the equation of this line in slope-intercept form. So again, we still need two pieces of information. We need a b value, so our start position, and we need slope. We have to have those two pieces of information to write the equation. So when I'm looking here, first off, my b value should be somewhere on this line. So right here would be my b value, which that is at 1. Now, once you've located your start point, it's your job to figure out some sort of pattern. All right, remember, slope is just a pattern. So your job is to figure out where are the other coordinate points at. And it has to cross at nice, pretty whole numbers. So kind of starting to mark some here for you. So this would be an example of a pattern. So it's the same thing over and over. So in this case, we are now looking at rise over run. Rise over run. So I rise 2, I run 1. So my slope, rise over run, 2 over 1, or 2. Okay, so now with that information, we're going to go ahead and write our equation. So we'll get y equals, my slope is 2x, and my starting position is at 1, so plus 1. All right, so next guy here. All right, so my b value, I need a b value, and I need my slope. Okay, so again, my b value has to sit on this guy right here. So we got to figure out where does it cross. So it looks like it's crossing right there at 5. So my b value here is going to be 5. And then my slope, since this is a horizontal line, we should already know that our slope is 0. So now we're going to write y equals 0x plus 5 or y equals 5. I would accept either one of those. All right, I want you to go ahead, pause the video, and I want you to try G on your own. All right, so b value, where does it cross the y-axis? So if you're looking right here, it should have crossed at 4. And then your slope. You're going to have to find the pattern here. So if I'm here, let's see, it looks like it's crossing here, here. Okay, so I'm doing my rise over run, so I'm going up 1 and over to the negatives 2. So then my slope, if I'm doing rise over run, I rise 1 and run negative 2, so it's negative 1/2. So now I write my final equation, y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. Okay, go ahead and flip to the next page, please. Okay, so now we're back to words. It says write a linear equation in slope-intercept form. You rent a bike for $15 plus $2 per hour. Okay. Now, one of the things we kind of start talking about, and we're going to keep talking about, is this word per. All right. When you see per, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, that's going to tell you that that's your slope. So I know I have a slope of 2, and it says you rent a bike for $15. So this is your start amount. You are starting at $15 and then paying him $2 per hour. So in this case, here's your b value, and then your slope would be 2. So y equals 2x plus 15. All right, I would like you to take a second, pause the video, and go ahead and try b on your own. Okay, so when you were looking at this guy, candle's 6 inches tall. Okay, so 6 inches tall, that's your b value. That's your starting height. Now, it says it burns at a rate of 1/2 inch per hour. So again, we see that word per showing up. So we're telling us that this is your slope. However, we have to be very careful because of this word burn. If we're burning, that means we actually should be using negative 1/2 because it's going down. So your equation should have been y equals negative 1/2 x plus 6. All right, last problem here, example 4. Water pressure can be measured in atmospheres, or ATM. And so what we need to do is we're just looking at this picture here to come up with information. So it says use the information diagram to write an equation that models the pressure Y. So they're telling you Y is pressure at a depth of X meters. So this is pretty important information. They are trying to help you out here, take that off, by telling you that the pressure is Y and that you have a depth of X. Okay, so let's go ahead and look in this picture here. So right here, let's start with this top guy. So it says at 0 meters, the pressure is 1. This bottom guy says the pressure increases by 0.1 atm per minute. Okay, now we kind of have talked that this guy right here, when we see that 0.1 atm per minute, that this would be your slope. Okay, so m will equal 0.1. All right, so let's come back up here and see what they gave us. So now at this, I'm writing a coordinate point. It says at 0 meters, so at 0, my ATM was 1. Well, when we write it like that, that looks like a y-intercept, which is your b value. So your equation would be y equals 0.1x plus 1. Okay, now they are asking us to graph this. So let's come down here and take a look at a graph. And I'm going to go ahead and transfer the equation right here. Okay, so when I'm graphing this, you have a couple options. First off, pay attention to your start point, right? We're starting at 1. So I know that I'm going to be starting at 1. This has to be 0. So there's my start point on my y-axis. Now, you have a couple options here. Your first option is that you can go up 0.1 and over 1. The problem is that's going to be really tricky to go up to 1.1, then 1.2, 1.3, okay? So what I recommend, instead of maybe doing that, is if you are able to write this guy as a fraction, I probably would go ahead and do that. And so what I mean by that is, if I think about 0.1, if I think about 0.1, hopefully we would know that that means it's 1 over 10. So really I'm going to graph y equals 1/10 x plus 1. And the reason I did that is now it's going to be way easier to go up 1 and over 10, however I want to number that, up 1 over 10 versus up 0.1 over 1, up 0.1 over 1, up 0.1 over 1, and it's just going to look like almost a straight line or a horizontal line. So I'm going to go up 1. So since I'm going up by 1s, I'm going to go ahead and just keep it going up by 1s. And over 10. Now, you can count by 1s, you can count by 10s. I'm going to count by 5s. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go up 1, and over to 10. And then up 1, over to 10, up 1 over 10. So I got my points going, so I'm going to go ahead and make my line now. Okay, and I am going to label. The nice thing is they already gave us the labels here. We have it from back here. X is meters, and then Y is your pressure or ATM. So this is going to be meters. And on this, you could put pressure or ATM, same thing, okay? And then I'm just going to put diver for my title, okay? All right, so now it says, next part here, what is the diver's pressure at a depth of 500 meters, okay? So meters is your X, so all I'm going to do is take this and plug it in right there. So I get y equals 1/10 times 500 plus 1. So now when we type that in, we end up with 51 ATM. Okay. All right, and that concludes notes for lesson 5.3.